welcome to Real Talk Office Hours, Hunting for Silver Linings for this Wednesday, the 1st of July, 2020. Hosted today by Corey Hart and George Castanos, and we also have a special guest. We have Mauricio. He's the Startup Grind Chapter Director from Barranquilla, Colombia. And maybe later we might be joined by John Payne, Senior Futures and Options Broker and Market Strategist with Daniels Trading. He might be joining us as well. We are overall brought to you by Startup Grind, the world's largest startup community with 600 plus chapters in over 125 countries. We operate with a mission to educate, inspire, and connect. Now, the pandemic has been and will continue to be a great global leveler, and as entrepreneurs, we need to do our very best for our businesses, our teams, families, and we need to be informed, rational, analytical, and rigorous in our thinking. We should also learn to control our biases as they emerge in various circumstances. We invite everyone to join us live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday as we record these, and as we track the intersection of facts, biases, and action through our review of global financial markets alongside check-ins with Real Talk, with Startup Grind Chapter Directors and entrepreneurs, ecosystem stakeholders from across the world. We do this because no one has a crystal ball, but if we keep an eye and if we keep eyes and ears open and pay attention, we may be able to see around the bend and with some luck, spot the silver linings that are around every cloud. Now, if you missed the live events, you can view the recordings at startupgrind.com/grand-rapids, where you can also download the reading notes from the show. Now, before I introduce George for our market update, a little bit of housekeeping. Comments made and views expressed by all participants in this podcast are not intended to invite or incite individuals, entrepreneurs, or investors to buy or sell financial assets, real assets, commodities, futures, and/or options. The purpose of this podcast is to educate and to inform, not to trade or to invest. If you feel compelled to trade and/or invest, please call your broker. Now, remember, risk is everywhere, even when you think that you are not taking a risk. And with that, it is my pleasure to introduce to everyone George Castanos to get us started with the catch-up of the markets and what they're doing.
Thank you, Corey. Hello to everyone. What a starting of the 1st of July. An incredible period of time. By all counts, the more important aspect is, as we've always said, the attention to the details. We are heading in more uncharted territory. For those of you who noticed yesterday's comments by the chair of the Federal Reserve, more stimulus across the economy, more financial support across the economy, and more than anything else, more manipulation of the markets. It is absolutely extraordinary to see how the markets have actually behaved, how the overall environment has become so benign. Let's start by focusing on Europe. Europe's largest economies, the UK and Germany, show that economic damage caused by the pandemic is deep, is profound. Unemployment in Germany surged in June, and the warnings for a slower than expected recovery abound. In the United Kingdom, house prices posted the first annual decline since 2012, and businesses, which is an equally important indicator, reported a record slump in sales. Airbus, Europe's airplane flagship manufacturer, is expected to cut 15,000 civil aerospace jobs internationally. And yet it warned that its biggest ever restructuring plan does not cover a worst case scenario. In the US, coronavirus infections increased by almost 50,000 to 2.6 million on Tuesday. And this is not good news. As we always do, and you can see in our notes for today, we cover the US market, we look at Europe, we look at Asia. We try to get an understanding of where this crisis is taking us as a prelude to interviewing our Startup Grind participants. The most important thing to remember is that this is a long road. We're by far in the very early stages of this pandemic and the recovery. What I would like to do is I would like to start today's review by repeating what Prudential's chief market strategist said this morning. Financial market concerns have become something like a new third mandate for the Federal Reserve along its statutory objectives of price stability and full employment. Quote, the Fed has underpinned this market and it's been complemented by monetary policy. You may not like the fact that it has extinguished concepts of capitalism like creative destruction, but central banks refused to allow market forces to take over. They don't want a complete collapse of the economy and the markets. So in the US, Pizza Hut, Wendy's operator, is seeking US bankruptcy. They filed protection in the Southern District of Texas this morning. In Mexico, cases jumped by 5,500, and Aeromexico filed for Chapter 11. In Europe, what we've seen is that beyond the restructuring of Airbus and beyond the slowdown in the UK and Germany, Europe has not recovered yet. The recovery process is going to be slow and painful. On the other hand, in Asia, we're seeing that South Korea, for the first time, is using remdesivir, the medicine that Gilead has prepared. And as it was stated, the use of the drug will be limited to patients in serious conditions. Everyone will be watching the trial use of this drug and its effects. Let's now go to our economic news. There we go. On the economic front, we are beginning to see that the dollar is trading within the usual range of 111 to 113. Today, the dollar is somewhat weaker against the euro, only a few bips, 30 bips. Stable against the yen compared to Monday, and against most of the crosses, the currencies have not moved very much. We will see what the effects of the new stimulus packages are going to be in relation to currencies. What we also want to see is what is happening on our bond side. The fixed income market is a market for savers, a market for those of conservative investment disposition. In Southeast Asia, the markets have been fairly stable. Japan barely moved. Australia barely moved. India under 6% for the 10 years. The markets are telling us that, the fixed income markets are telling us that they are cautious. They are seeing what is happening in the equity market, the rallies that we've had so far this year, and the bond markets are not convinced. In Europe, on the other hand, we're seeing that the laggards in economic growth and or the weaker nations like Italy and Greece have done very well. The Greek 10-year yield is at 116, France is at minus 0.7, Italy at 1.27, Germany at -4, and Switzerland at -0.5. Again, European yields have not moved very dramatically. However, they suggest caution and preference by fixed income investors to keep on investing in the fixed income markets. In the US, the 10-year yield is hovering at about 0.7%. The rest of the Americas is unchanged, with Mexico under 6%, Brazil under 7%. So what the bond markets are saying in general terms is, we are not afraid of inflation at the moment, but we do see the need for caution. With regard to the commodities markets, and I was hoping that John would have been able to join us today to discuss the grains. The energy sector is boosted by the continued agreement between Saudi Arabia and Russia. West Texas is hovering around $40 a barrel. Brent is about $41.6 a barrel. Natural gas just under $1.7 per thousand BTUs. Gold is trading at 1780. It hit a high of 1800 the last day or so. Considerations about inflationary pressures and the base of the currency are the foundations of the rally in gold. Copper is trading over $270 per pound. That is a remarkable increase. Manufacturing seems to be growing steadily. With regard to the grains, what we are seeing is a bid in the market. It seems that China will be buying more. Let's see how long this trade lasts. And last but not least, I would like to conclude this part of our presentation by looking at equities. The equities market in Asia was a bit mixed. We have seen that the Nikkei was down about 1.2%. China was up 1.4%. The Hong Kong market was up barely 7 points overall. South Korea was down 1.4%. India was up 1%. So generally speaking, Asia has done well. Europe, on the other hand, has been treading water. FTSE is up 0.4%. The DAX barely moved flat for the day, and the CAC is 0.2% up. Here in the US, the rally is continuing. The Dow is up 0.6%, the S&P 0.4%, and NASDAQ 0.4%. Against this background, we always recommend to our entrepreneurs and investors, please be cautious. Look for the silver lining, don't take unnecessary risks, and remember, there will always be opportunities for you to develop products and ideas. Just be careful though, because the markets are suggesting caution across the board. And with this, I would like to invite our speaker from Colombia to introduce himself and tell us a little bit about his background.
Okay, thank you, George. Thank you for having me. It's my first time being invited into another Startup Grind event. Well, I'm, as you said, a chapter director from Startup Grind Barranquilla in Colombia. And my background, I started working as graphic designer, then move on as UX UI designer, then to marketing, and then to be an advisor in marketing and branding. Then I founded my own agency, and also I'm working with the El Ministerio de Comunicaciones, Ministry of Telecommunications. They have a program, it's apps.com. It's a program that tries to promote the startup ecosystem, specifically in apps development here in Colombia. Well, and also was Startup Grind director.
Thank you. Tell us, please, how did you decide to join Startup Grind? How long ago did you start working with the community of venture capitalists and entrepreneurs? And what have been the major achievements that you've seen in this period of time?
Okay, can you repeat the last question, please?
Yes, Mauricio. How long have you been with Startup Grind? When did you start Startup Grind? That's the first thing. And the second is, over these last few years that you've been working with Startup Grind, what have been the major milestones that you have seen?
Okay. Well, I start in Startup Grind almost, gonna be 2 years this August. And it was when I was starting working as a consultant for the ministry with apps, the apps.com program. That was almost, I don't know, 3 years and a half ago. We as consultants, well, I'm gonna try to explain a little bit of the program. It's acceleration program that the ministry has, and they have all these grants for the people that gain it. And it's about all the consultancy they need in terms of marketing, sales, development, etc. And also they give some access to funding to the development and tools in the cloud. So in all those years, consulting these startups locally here in the coast of Colombia, because they were from Barranquilla, Cartagena, Monteria, cities around the coast here in Colombia, we detect that most of them have the feeling they were disconnected, because even in the program we were kind of isolated, because they came into the trainings, but it was all the groups by itself. There was no room to talk to each other and make community and the sense of be a big part of it. And also that's in the local sense. Also they wasn't aware of the big opportunities they have out there. You know, you have to talk to them. You cannot only apply to local accelerators, you can apply to international ones like Y Combinator and so on. So we sense that lack of sense of community. They felt alone. They felt they had no more resources to count. So we start to find a way to organize them and to make feeling community. So I start my research on Google, and I found a great article on Forbes talking about Startup Grind and how it was the biggest community and how yeah, all the benefit it has for all its members. So I decided to apply, and it was awesome because I went in love with the values of the Startup Grind, because you have to give first, help people, connect. They really resound with my own values. So I decided to apply, and I started to meet the people in the headquarters. They were amazing, kind people, where you really had the saying that they are willing to help others. So, and finally, I was admitted as a director. It has been a great journey. The things I have noticed being as a Startup Grind, Startup Grind chapter director is, well, people really appreciate these kind of spaces that you bring, either in physical or now digital. They really appreciate the space to meet each other, to gain knowledge about another entrepreneur, how they manage the challenge, how they are succeeding, and learn from their stories, and also learn from each other. And I've been like almost 2 years making events here, and I can tell more than, I don't know, 10 companies that have the seed has been planted in a Startup Grind event. They came, I don't know, 1 year later, and they gave their testimony how they met the right investor or the right idea, and now they have a company, and they are really thrilled about that. So it's really satisfying to hear those stories thanks to Startup Grind.
Great experience. I'm sure, Mauricio, it must have been a great journey for you, starting to bring together all these threads, where each thread is a separate company, a separate idea, a separate marketing plan, a separate vision. I think it is really important to stress that in Startup Grind, the mindset of the community is one of openness, of sharing, of giving everyone access and opportunity. And I think it's great to see that you're able to foster this kind of culture in Colombia. By means of your introduction, you started answering one of my questions about who are the main players in the startup ecosystem in Colombia at the moment. You mentioned the ministry itself, that they had an accelerator program. Other players? Who are the players?
Yeah, well, the main players nowadays, well, actually, nowadays they have the open the admissions to their accelerators. We have, as I said, apps.gov, apps.com is the biggest one. It's in the whole country, and the second one will be Impulsa. Impulsa is another one, big big player. And another one, the Sena, is another accelerator here. And also we have local actors. For example, here in Colombia, we have Punto Estratégico, because they cover the whole process. from the ideation to acceleration to consolidation, and it's awesome. They are huge, and also has smaller players, like they are kind of in the middle of co-working space plus accelerators. And we have House, we have I don't remember, Upland, and it's a great ecosystem from big players to small players. We are really trying to work by hand together to ingrain, I don't know, to ingrain things locally, nationally, and internationally.
Okay, that's excellent. Do you have, in addition to these accelerators, do you have private investors? Do you have venture capital investors? Do you have angel investors? So if I wanted to start my own business, would I first go to friends and family, or could I go to angel investors and say, I'll make a pitch and say, well, this is my product, this is my idea. Would you like to join?
Yeah, yeah. Glad you mentioned that. Well, thanks to there were in paper a lot of kind of fintechs trying to do that in a couple of back years, but thanks to this pandemic, things have been accelerated a lot, and thanks for that. Nowadays we have uh, two angel cap. We have Finactiva. Finactiva is a fintech, is a private one, and they try to found this startup based mainly in tech. It's Finactiva with K.com, and all startups in Colombia, only if they have like the idea or the deck, they can apply to that. They can receive almost $50,000 to be accelerate. And also there is one from the Ascenso. Ascenso is another one, and they work hand by hand with the Bolsa de Valores, with the, how do you say that? Well, the stock market here in Colombia, and they have private investors, and they articulate that with this Ascenso with a two, and you can go there, present your deck, and they put you in front of these private investors from the stock market here in Colombia, and you can get funded as well.
Interesting. So you have a fully developed ecosystem, right? In addition to the government through the official accelerators, you have private sector accelerators, and then you have a network of angel investors, right?
Right. This has been really recent here from Colombia, because if you see, I don't know, 5 years ago, none of this was happening. I believe it's really recent, at least 3 years until now, that has been really fast, because nowadays we are in the third place in this kind of maturity of ecosystem in startups. We are Brazil is leading the way, then it's Mexico, and now Colombia is in the third place. 5 years ago, I believe we weren't even in the 10th place. Nowadays has been really been accelerated, and it's going to be even more. For example, the development of e-commerce in Latin America nowadays, especially in Colombia, is almost 500% has been increased since the pandemic. So
great numbers. This is phenomenal growth. Yeah, this is phenomenal growth. Mauricio, can you please help me here? I mean, you are in the middle of the heart of Latin America. What sectors do you see playing a pivotal role as two trends are happening? One is you're having increased digitalization in the economy, and the second because of the pandemic. Which are the main sectors in which startups are emerging?
Okay, that's a great question. One of the biggest sectors is fintech, as I said. A lot of digital wallets has skyrocket right now. Everybody's using them. There are new ones entering the field, so has been huge, huge. The second one is all the service about to have your e-commerce development, like Shopify, but local ones. We have Tienda Nube, we have Ozone Group that are giving people the chance to have their own e-commerce for a really small fee and has been skyrocket right now. Also the third sector that has really well is the delivery sector. All, you know, Rappi, I don't know if you're aware of it. Rappi is our Colombian unicorn. It's an app to get all the stuff you want delivered, from groceries to, I don't know, clothes. So all the delivery sector has a huge booming right now. Every kind of it, from drugs to medicine, from, I don't know, the groceries, whatever, and has been a lot of developed on all kind of delivery services. And another one, big one is digital education, e-learning. We have some player here, for example, the This Nation is, I don't know, like our Coursera here, and has big numbers right now. They were like a small startup some months ago, and nowadays they're selling like crazy. They're having a lot of courses. Myself are hosting a lot of webinars. People are hungry to learn new skills and reskill for this new reality.
This last comment is a good way to start my second question, which is how has the pandemic affected the communication within Startup Grind?
The communication with Startup Grind.
Within, I mean between
within.
entrepreneurs, yes, between entrepreneurs, investors, all the stakeholders in the ecosystem.
I believe that has affected for the good, because, for example, these spaces haven't been possible months ago to be here collaborating among directors, and I believe we have been more close and trying to move forward and take the best out of it. I've been talking more than ever with the headquarters. I've been assisting more the working hour sessions with the community manager, and also I don't know if you were at the town hall session that Derek received a month ago, and it was awesome. I never had the opportunity to see him and share with him, and it was really encouraging for me as a director.
Do you see that your members in Colombia are benefiting by your access to the Startup Grind community?
A lot, yeah. I believe that the best thing that for my local community they have access through me being a director is to see a bigger horizon in the startup community, because before that we were myself we were also just considering the local opportunities. As I said, Impulsa, Absoluto Call, the initiative here in Colombia. Thanks to Startup Grind, now we are aware that it's a bigger world out there. There's another, you can access to a whole universe of investors internationally that go to events. For example, last year I sent a local startup. They have an app to buy and sell used cars. The name is Carpet, and they were just thinking in Colombia. I offered him to go to the event, to the global event last February, and they went, and they came up so happy, full of ideas, full of opportunities, and was awesome having them back in the event, sharing his experience. And he was actually telling that I was thinking just like in Colombia, maybe South America, and now I'm thinking in the world to achieve with my app. So it was awesome. I think that's the best thing.
This is a great achievement that you've accomplished. That's a wonderful, wonderful. Tell me, when you look back on these last 3-4 turbulent months, what is the most common question that your members ask you?
Okay, that's a tough one. The most common question. Okay, I think it's related. I have a couple of ones, but I think they're all related. The most common question is about e-commerce stuff, how they can transform the, the business to the digital realm, how they can do that. So, for example, I bring in the last event a speaker who has transformed he's selling the Beyond Meat patties, burger patties here in Colombia. They were selling at the beginning just to restaurants. It was a B2B business model, but now with the pandemic, all the restaurants, most of them are closed or just selling through deliveries. So his numbers went down, and he transformed his business using Shopify, and now he's selling the Beyond Meat, the burgers to consumers. Now it's a B2C, and he's selling like crazy. And he was sharing how the e-commerce changed his business model in a really easy and cost-effective way. I believe that's the most common question I'm receiving. The second most is about because here we are at the coast. Most of our cities are depending on tourism for their economies, and as you know, has been a really big impact in tourism. And restaurants, bars, clubs, they depend mostly on tourism, and they're having a really difficult time. I believe half of them have closed. So the thing that I have seen great success in one of my members. They used to have I don't know, like a mobile bar. They bring it to weddings, to I don't know, shows, and of course we are not having that right now. And he transformed it. It was show with cocktails and music, and now he went to selling that service to become that as a product. Now they have all those cocktails being bottled as cocktails with really nice branding, and they sell them in package and with a playlist, and they do digital events and have been awesome from him. So that's a really nice example of find that silver lining, to find opportunities that go from service to product, go from B2B to B2C, that transform to pivot your business model.
That's wonderful examples, because you touched on the business transformation, which is a process transformation, but also a product transformation. What you mentioned before about
Exactly.
the cocktail business, this is a product. They took a stationary product and they made it available to everybody, mobile. In the case of e-commerce and Beyond Meat, I think this is a great example of being flexible, agile, taking bricks and mortar to online. What about education? What about skill development? What do you see in this area? What we call EdTech, educational technology?
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think I'm in love with education online, because it's an awesome opportunity for you. For example, for me as a professional, I've been doing all these advisor services for long years, and I haven't stopped to see the opportunity of separate my time from my knowledge. What I mean by that, all the time when I spend with my client, helping them to achieve some goal or training them as a consultant, I can do an online course about that, to record myself and do all the lessons that the person needs to get there, and package that as a product. And then again, I transform my service into a product using online courses. So now I have my online courses as a video course, as an education online. So I am separating my time from my knowledge, and then I can resell every time I want my course, because it's encapsulated with my knowledge. So I can use my time in a more profitable way. So that's awesome. And also
that's a great example, by the way. Great example.
Yeah, I've been doing myself because I haven't thought about that. And in this relation with the Business Nation, as I told, this is a startup of online education. They have been guiding me, training me how to do that, to first to recognize all those skills that I have and how to monetize them, and how to separate them and become them as a product. So it's a great opportunity for us as professionals, as startups, to do that, to do that separation and find that those skills and turn them into products, and also for the people that wants to consume them to reskill. And there's a lot of opportunities. Google has lots of free courses to get some new skills in digital marketing, in SEO and Google Ads. And I believe all people that are hearing us, is the time to learn new things, because all these crises, for me, the main lesson that has is to see things in another way, to see things differently. Because if you can do the same stuff that you have been doing for years, well, it's now time to do it differently and take advantage of it.
Absolutely correct. And that's why when we are hunting for the silver lining, we always remind ourselves and our colleagues that never let a crisis go wasted. Learn from it. Three last questions as we're concluding this interview, Mauricio, and thank you so much for your answers so far. What are typical exit strategies for startups in Colombia at the moment?
Sorry, repeat it.
Yes, what are the typical exit strategies for startups, for investors in startups?
Can you give me an example, please?
Yes, an exit strategy would be to go through an initial public offering, to go through a merger, an acquisition. It would be to be bought by a bigger company, and so on and so forth.
Okay, well, here it depends. Since the startup community here is in that kind of maturation, we don't have like a lot of big mature startups that are ready to be bought. But there are some that has been through that. For example, there's a private company. They buy startups that are in the how do you say that, in the real estate realm. So is that related with that? It have like they buy in real estate and also in tourism here. I don't know the name of that. You can go to them to get bought. But I believe that here in Colombia, we don't have much market to that. Then the ones I know that are prepared to an exit strategy, they are all of them recurring to international actors to do that. They travel to Silicon Valley to get the right investors, or to Europe, because here right now we are just in the first stages of founding of the startups.
Thank you. How easy is it in general to start a business in Colombia? Is the bureaucracy helpful? Is the process of setting up a company straightforward? You told me that there is adequate capital to raise capital if you need. So how easy from, let's say, how would you rank the process of starting up a company?
Okay, if you had asked me that 2 years ago, I will tell you that it was not easy. It was kind of cumbersome and slow process. But right now it's really much more easy. You can register your company with the Chamber of Commerce online. But last year you couldn't do that. Nowadays you can do it all online. So I can say it's much easier now. It's and from someone this come from somewhere else, they can be kind of easier, because if you come from the States, it's a lot more easier and less costly. But right now it's a lot more easy and it's not that costly. And also there's a journey already open for startups. You just have to knock the door to any of these actors. I said, like all the operators from the government, the ads.com, and they can train you and go through, take you by the hand and go through all the process. So it's much easier.
That's great. That is a wonderful sense of evolution and achievement, and I'm sure that will stimulate a lot of growth. As we're coming now to the end of our interview, Mauricio, last question. What do you think is the next normal like?
The normal life.
The next normal, when we get out of this long tunnel called pandemic and crisis.
Yeah.
Do you have
normal.
any? Yes, yes.
Okay, we were talking about that with Candace, our community manager. You must know her. We believe that the new normal, it will be like a hybrid experience. We'll be transitioning from online to digital all the time, and something in between. For example, a new normal for me, as I envision it, for our startup grind events will be, for example, a hybrid when we can host an in-person event in a room full of people, that we can have a speaker from Estonia in video conference, and we will be in presence here, and maybe another speaker locally, and we can interact in a hybrid mode between digital and in-person mode. I believe that would be the next new normal, at least for a startup line. And for the community in general, I think it will be kind of the same. And in speaking of the working industry, I believe people have found a new sense of satisfaction working at home. It's kind of challenging, but it has its perks to work at home. I believe in the industry, people will find hybrid to work at home, I don't know, for 3 days and 2 days in the office. I believe we will find like that middle ground between our digital and analogic life, I don't know.
Mauricio, great to have you on board. Thank you for joining Corey and myself. It was a real pleasure. It is extraordinary that as we speak with various directors in the startup grind community around the world, we see that everyone is benefiting from this crisis. Everyone is communicating better, deeper, and it's a meaningful conversation. Thank you.
You have said it right on spot, meaningful and deeper. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it to have this opportunity to show a bit of our reality here, and I enjoyed it a lot. Thank you.
Well, as you're beginning to go to your afternoon, please bear in mind that Corey and I are always able and willing to help. We have coaching experience, we have hands-on management experience, we have turned companies around. So if you need any advice, don't be afraid to knock on our door, and we look forward to having you again in the future.
Same here. You have a friend here in Barranquilla, you and Corey. Thank you, George.
Muchas gracias.
Un placer. Hasta luego.
Adiós.